Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic Friday. Today we're going to be talking about those 11 altcoins that we covered over the course of 2 videos that we had identified a falling wedge pattern for. And we ultimately said that this was going to, likely in the months of October and November, result in hundreds of percents gains for these altcoins. Now, given how this week has gone and the start of October, it's kind of been a bit of a downtober, hasn't it? We've had news in regards to Iran, Israel. Of course, markets do not like uncertainty. And we've had some negative news in regards to the crypto space more generally with things like the SEC's appeal of the verdict by Judge Torres in regards to the Ripple, Brad and Chris lawsuit. So the price action has been down. And what I want to be doing in this video is taking a look at those altcoins, the 11 that we covered in one video, showing you actually that they're all doing a pretty textbook thing despite the news in regards to what typically happens once you trigger the pattern that we are identifying being a falling wedge. So we're going to be doing a bit of recapping. And when we look across the altcoin sector, whether I look at it from a cycle point of view, markets move very cyclically, kind of like the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory. Wyckoff spoke about this with the accumulating uptrend, distribution downtrend. Dow spoke about it. Stan Weinstein spoke about it. Of course, we've got an entire course that covers it in our market master in regards to how markets move in 4 phases. The majority of the altcoin space is really breaking out into phase 2, which is an uptrend. And we think when we look at the macro picture, we look at the direction of Bitcoin and the markets more broadly, this is very likely to play out. And certainly there's a lot of technical confluence in regards to it actually happening. But when we identify these, or when we look at these 11 altcoins, you'll see that pattern is still very valid. And we are still, despite this week's price action and the start of October's price action, predicting hundreds of percents to come for some of these altcoins. I think the minimum one is like 90-something%, but we'll break that all down throughout the course of this video. So this might be a bit of a longer one, guys, but it's going to be a good one, I do promise you. Let's kick things off with the pattern and a schematic of the pattern that we were identifying. And of course, it is known commonly as, or only known in my opinion, I don't know any other names for it, a falling wedge. And I want you to pay attention to this schematic, and we'll possibly throw it up on the screen. We'll look at a couple of examples of a falling wedge, and then we'll show you that the 11 altcoins that we've identified are very compliant in regards to what you'd expect or what a falling wedge is. And not only that, they've actually broken out, and given this news, they've kind of almost come back for a retest. Now, when you take resistance, whether it's horizontal, it could be a neckline, or a range top resistance, or whatever it may be, or whether it's a descending resistance in regards to a trend line, like what a falling wedge has, once you break that, it's very commonly accompanied, when you break out something, it's very commonly accompanied by a pullback into it. So previous resistance then turns into support. So the sort of closer to it you get, some people would say the less bullish, that the further away from it you get in regards to that retest that typically, or the pullback that typically follows the breakout, the more bullish it is. And we'll kind of not pay too much attention to that, but really just look from a technical pattern point of view where all of these altcoins are, and reassert our bullish narrative in regards to, from a technical point of view. We're not going to go into the macro and the larger time frames and things like this. Just really focus on these patterns and the fact that these altcoins very much, in my opinion, are still in play to see hundreds of percent gains despite everything that's gone on. Retail, and we notice it, there's a reason retail doesn't make money, and it's because of the attitude that I'd say the vast majority of crypto investors have. It's very short-sighted. They get a notification on Coinbase saying this is down, that's down, and everything goes out the window. This is why we like to put the armor of technical analysis on. It gives us something solid to put our feet onto that we can ultimately invest off of, if that makes sense. But this falling wedge pattern, very textbook. I want you to pay attention to the 1, the 2, and the 3 in terms of the kind of movements that form this falling wedge. There's a restriction, isn't there, of kind of price movement that ultimately sets you up for that explosion to the upside. The Bollinger Bands, for example, is entirely around, or partially around, this method in regards to when those Bollinger Bands restrict, there's that restriction of volatility, and out of it you'll get a pretty explosive move to the upside. So let's look at a practical example, or a live example of this. And of course we have here Ethereum Classic. This is something that we looked at the time of it forming. This is going all the way back to 2019. And you can essentially see here we have that 1, that 2, and that 3 before you then break out. And notice on the breakout, after that breakout, you then got a retest. And when we identify the altcoins that we spoke about having now broken out of their falling wedge, they're all in this position, and I ultimately think are going to rocket out of it. We're going to keep you up to date on this. Now that we've given this prediction, where are we invalidated? Well, when you run this. So you run the low, you're out. Allincrypto, your falling wedge patterns on these 11 altcoins have failed. There's far more than just the 11. These are just 11 that we previously highlighted. We look at some in the Patreon. Now's the perfect time to become a Patreon, by the way, because it's the optimal time to be investing in the crypto space, in my opinion. Of course, you can make that decision up for yourself. But if we look at a practical example, you can see, just like the schematic here, 1, 2, 3. And really, as a technical analyst, all we're doing is we're looking for price movement in a certain manner that has a high probability of going in a direction. So it could be a rising wedge. We know that's likely to break to the downside. It could be a falling wedge. We know that's likely to break to the upside. And if something does something 9 times out of 10, that's a good probability that will allow us to be more accurate on what the future may hold. That's all we're doing as technical analysts, is we're analyzing price action. You could go and say, okay, well, there's a falling wedge sets up because of these things happening. There's a kind of a blow off move in an uptrend, and then there's a kind of restriction or a loosening of interest, and then there's that reassertion again. There could be these kind of social things that accompany technical analysts and analysis, and there's a kind of whole study done on that. But you can see what we're highlighting here. Obviously, a more or a less further ahead example is, of course, helium. This was called bias pre-obviously break, but you can see again, 1, 2, 3. You get that breakout, and then actually there was a retest. Now, it didn't come back to this, but it came, first breakout, then a pullback, and then continuation. And your altcoins broadly on the back end of all this negative news, Iran, Israel, are in this position here. And what I want to do now is dive into those altcoins because we gave you so many of them. And what you can derive from this is that, okay, if we have 11 altcoins here that are all set for some pretty explosive upside, well, the space is generally going to be doing well. We know Bitcoin's likely to complete its correction. We've got targets for lots of stocks on the smaller time frame. We can put all these pieces of the puzzle together and sort of give you a complete view of the picture. So the first falling wedge that we have for you, and we're not going to do these in the order that we did them in the video, but it's Algorand. Now, Algorand's been a sluggish horse in the race. We're not going to focus on the bigger picture, the more longer-term time frames. We're really going to be looking at the daily and showing these patterns here, which leads us to believe in the short term, you're going to have a very bullish time for these altcoins. Short to mid-term, October, November. Mid-term, I would say, is 3 months, 4 months. Short terms in the sort of imminent future, month or month and a half out. Longer terms, more year down the line, et cetera, et cetera. And year down the line, we think crypto market's going to do spectacularly. But you can see again, what we're highlighting here is 1, 2, 3. It's useful me doing this because we're going to create courses on the back end of these sort of patterns, and we have that breakout, and then we get that retest, and you can see you're kind of forming a bit of a floor here in regards to support. Running this would be a negative sign, but we ultimately think you're going to see 100% gain for Algorand likely in the coming months, 119% gain thereabouts. So that's one altcoin that's clearly showing a falling wedge it's very likely broken out of, that's predicting upside. Of course, one of my favorite altcoins out there is Hedera Hashgraph. Now, you could include the BlackRock news and then the dumping that took place because of some shenanigans, but we're not going to talk too much about that. We did have an individual on to talk to us about that actually worked for one of those organizations. But you can see 1, 2, 3. Basing, forming that support, breakout, retest. It's very common, let's go to the daily on this. Let's find the chart because it'll throw me all over the place now. Let's zoom this in. Can you see this? I'm showing you a great example, Ethereum Classic. Obviously this was March 2020. Breakout, retest. Breakout, retest, get ready for that continuation. I think HBAR could do 200% gains. One of my largest positions in regards to the cryptocurrency space. We're very transparent with what we hold, even though we don't need to be. 1, 2, 3, breakout, pullback. Get ready for that continuation, guys. Cardano. Many of your favorites out there. Again, 1, 2. This was a really crappy second, but it was higher than the third, which is the important point. 3, floor forming, breakout. Where have you come back to? What was previous resistance, now holding you as support. You're likely going to move out of this. You know, Cardano back to its high is what? 100+% gains, and you've got the technical pattern that might take you there. And the thing is, it's across the altcoin market broadly. Here we have Filecoin. 1, 2, 3. Breakout, and it's come back. And you can see resistance, now likely acting as support, setting you up for a major move to the upside. Dogecoin. Again. 1, 2, 3. Base. Breakout. Retest. Continuation is on the horizon, ladies and gentlemen. A cash network. 1, 2, 3. Breakout. Retest. Continuation. We're seeing the same thing across the entire altcoin market. October, we still think is on, by the way, despite the lackluster start to it. And we think the altcoin market is giving us that confidence in regards to the direction we think the space is about to now embark on. Shiba Sheeb, we said alt season is coming. We looked at the break here, not just on the smaller time frames, but also on the macro. Again, what do you have here? 1 big impulse, 2, 3, basing, break, come back, continuation. You're here, and you've got this to come. You've got a major up leg ahead of you for these altcoins, and there's many more out there. Near, 1, 2, 3. Breakout, pull back, get ready for that continuation. Jasmine, 1, 2, 3. Breakout, pull back to previous resistance, now flip to support in regards to this capping grind line or trend line. Get ready for that continuation. And I think this could set up a bigger pattern for Jasmine. We'll do a price prediction on it. Render. 1, 2, 3. Breakout. Previous resistance, now flip support. Ready for that continuation. We looked at Sushi Swap. Not a big fan of DeFi, but this is a great falling wedge. 1, 2, 3. Breakout. Off we go. And then R-Weave. And we'll leave you on that, guys. 1, 2, 3. Breakout. This has kind of slipped back in, but I do think this is going to sort of rectify itself. You're at a good area of support here, and ultimately you can see it certainly on the broader time frame. You know, you broke out into phase 1 here, phase 2 retest in a falling wedge manner. Get ready for that continuation. So when we recap, despite the sentiment that retail seems to kind of follow into, you know, a little bit of negative price action. Okay, that's it, it's over. When we technically look at the charts, which is why we're technical analysts, it paints a very different picture to perhaps what's been portrayed in regards to the negative sentiment that is attached to the crypto space on the back end of what is a bit of a lame start to October. However, when we technically look at those 11 altcoins that we gave you, they're all still in very good standings. We think the technical pattern is still very valid, and we think hundreds of percents are going to be made on the back end of some of these. And we just thought we would keep you up to date. Now that if we're going to give you we're going to look at a technical pattern playing out, we're going to follow it through, and we're going to see that these targets get met or these patterns play out. And if they don't, we'll come out and say, we'll do a video just like this, and we'll say, okay, we're wrong on these. Here's where it's all been invalidated. So watch out for these 11 altcoins. I know some of you hold them. It's going to be a spectacular time. We have many more out there. We think the space generally is positioned in a fantastic manner, and that we're ultimately going to hopefully all do very well on the back end of this year or so. I think lives are literally going to be changed. But that's my own opinion. You guys choose to do whatever it is you choose to do. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Have a fantastic Friday, ladies and gents, and I'll see you all in the next one.